All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the season premiere of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zil. It's great to have you all back here with us again. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, K-Libra. How are you doing?
I have been finding out some magical things about art and myself, and I am starting to find my upswing. Read Berserk to find out how to do it yourself. Always read Berserk. Immediately do it now. It's been months since you've last heard us. Read it.
Yes, this is true. This is our request.
Request.
We
it's
have a very special...
It's a requirement. It's a requisite. Understand me. Understand true transformation. Read Berserk.
Well, we have a very special guest here today, and really excited to be chatting with him. I have some books of his behind me. So, Chris, I don't know if you'd like to introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris Grine. I'm the illustrator and person who adapted the Animorphs graphic novels for Scholastic, 1 through 6. That's current right now, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, really happy to have you here. And obviously, Animorphs is something that's important to a lot of, myself, some of our audience, etc. So it's really exciting to have you on to kind of chat a little bit about your work and such. And I was curious to kind of just start on the ground level and understand what drew you into art in the first place and what you find engaging about being a comic adapter, writer, and illustrator.
I don't remember a time when I really wasn't like drawing or, doing something creative. And it was, probably middle school years when I was like, I really want to do comics. At the time though, that's like the easiest thing for like, I would think for a lot of people who want to get into visual storytelling, whether it be TV, film, or comics or books or whatever. Like that's the easiest thing to do in like a grade school setting or just school setting. In those years. So that's kind of where I got into comics. And that really wasn't my goal to do comics professionally. That was just like, I wanted to tell stories. And at that time, that was the only way I had to do it. And I'm not saying I did it well at all back then. It was just something I was always interested in. And I'm kind of losing track of the rest of the half of the question.
I think broadly speaking, how what you find engaging about it in general, like both the illustration of comics and writing.
For me, it was, I think I probably missed my calling to some degree as maybe a storyboard artist. It's something I've always been interested in too. And kind of, as a result, comics have kind of filled that hole for me as far as like wanting to be able to tell my stories. But this way I can, if I was like doing storyboard art, I'd still be laying out, sequentially, what's happening or whatever. So now it seemed like a natural transition for me to just make my comics that way. So if you actually, for people who have seen a lot of my stuff and read my books, there's a lot of panels that are like widescreen kind of thing. Like I'll have pages where there's like 3 or 4 panels, and I like that because it's more cinematic to me. And I grew up just glued to movies of pretty much every genre. And so that's kind of where I think a lot of my storytelling comes from. Is just like, I want to tell big fantasy type stories and sci-fi and things like that, but I want them to feel bigger than just like what a comic book feels like. And that's something I think we all try to do, but that's where my kind of drive comes from, and I'm constantly trying to learn and improve on that. And
yeah, I get you. You're talking about the storyboard stuff. It sounds like you still really care about it. Ever consider still trying to get your foot in there?
Well, I have some friends that I've met over the years that kind of work out in LA and have been in the animation movies and stuff too. And they're like, yeah, man, we'd love to get you to, I live in Missouri. Like with wife, kids, family, our life is here. My wife works at Hallmark Cards right here in Kansas City. And they're like, yeah, you would be great at this. We love your stuff. All you got to do is pack up and move out here to Burbank or move out here to LA. And I'm like, guys, I'm almost 50. I'm not. That's a young man's game, and I can appreciate
it. It's crazy. You can just fucking have you like send your shit over. People did it in COVID. They made Final Fantasy VII Remake during COVID and recorded remotely and everything. They could get your storyboarding shit if they really care. God damn.
From what I understand, they really, with storyboard artists specifically, they really like you to be in house or at least local, because lots of meetings and stuff like that. And I understand that too. And it's just how it goes. But that is definitely, like, if I could do it all over again, I probably would have focused a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I hope that you know, you get like a magical second opportunity that is somehow more convenient. I really hope so.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned it as well, because I know you mentioned your wife does greeting cards, and I think that was also where you got your start to a degree. And so I was curious to know just a little bit what that was like, and if you had a lot of latitude in what you were actually able to create.
That was a different thing for me, because I came out of, art college, and I was there for like 5 years, so it's very, very liberal, very free and open and stuff. And then I immediately get hired, which I'm not complaining about, and like a very corporate art job. And it started out really fun, but kind of as the years went on, and they had to get more and more and more corporate just to keep up with competitors and stuff. A lot of the fun perks and the things that artists would always tell us about, like, oh, we go out and do all these, things where we just go draw all day at this, down at the zoo, or we'd go do this and that, or we take trips, and like all that was gone. Shortly, I would say maybe 5 or 6 years after I started, like they had to really, and I understood that too, but we had like, basically they would like give you like the writing. Like I worked in the humor department, so in my job was illustrator. Although we did get opportunities to write some of the stuff, it was very, I don't know, it wasn't like frowned upon. It was just this weird dynamic there. Like there was the writers and then there was the artists, and if the artists wanted to submit stuff for writing, that was fine, but it still had to go through like the committee of all the writers. So a lot of them. Sometimes I just felt like it was a club that we just were not allowed in. Although I had some stuff picked up for writing and things, but basically we'd get the writing, and then we would have to like concept some ideas, like any freelance job or whatever, and just on a smaller scale, And we had art directors that would come around every day and just kind of check what we were doing, and they would approve things. There'd be different. It was very much like freelance or anything else, where it's just like, you do the sketches and then you get those signed off on. Then you do the art, and then, there may be some revisions, but that gets signed off for. And you have when I first started, we had about a week per card to design, which to me was ridiculous. Right. That was way more time than I needed, but I was still learning, so I was slower. And that time was great. But by the time I left Hallmark about 10 years ago, I mean, I was doing I could do 2 to 3 cards a day.
Oh, wow.
Not the full release, with all this setup and files and stuff, but like the artwork. And I mean, it started becoming less and less people as they started letting people go, and but not less work. So we just had to figure it. I don't miss being around all the creative people all day long. To me, that was great, because I traded it off for working from home by myself. Right. So I've gone feral a little bit to some extent. Much more of a homebody now. But no, it was a good experience for me, and I think if I take anything from that, it's not that I was ever what I would consider like an unprofessional person or whatever, but like it really taught me how to deal with art directors, just creative directors, and people who maybe are in those positions but don't have a lot of background in that, like, because people get promoted all the time, and for weird reasons. So
I'll add to that. I just want to add to that real quick by saying, just my experiences are, people think they know what they want. They don't. They will tell you, can you fit these things in that cannot possibly exist in an image at the same time without twisting reality or breaking something that will make it look bad, but they don't understand that. And I've had a lot of just clients who would ask me, I need to see the back of this and also the front and some of the side, where I'm like, no, it's not happening. And here's why. And that's even if I decide to say. So, I mean, the short version to say is, I understand that. And definitely is a valuable experience when you hang around those people. And whether you like them or not, it just, it is a decent education with how to handle yourself, and especially those kind of people. And I was going to say that also that, you said you get kind of feral, but you seem very well socialized to me.
Well, let's see. I went feral, and then about when COVID started, Hallmark had everybody work from home. Like a lot of places did. So my wife has now been here since 2020, so 5 years. And she's kind of pulled me back from the ledge of, I actually get dressed some days. I don't just wear pajamas all day long, and I comb my hair for you guys. I went and
thank you.
Did all that.
Appreciate
I'm
it.
all fancy for you guys now. You think I'm all well adjusted, but it's smoke and mirrors.
Look, it's look. Before we move on, I just got to tell you, there are some people who just give way less of a shit than you ever feel like you do right now. Like there could be people with shit on their faces, and they're just like, like that or whatever. Like, trust me, they're out there. I've had webcams turn on where I'm just like, oh Jesus fucking Christ, I cannot fucking believe that you want people to see you like this. Yes. So trust me, give yourself more credit than that. All right. Fair anyway, moving along. Just fucking goddamn.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, and I guess but I do want to get into some of the nitty gritty with the visual novels, but I was curious to just know as well what you would say has been your most creatively challenging project to date, and if that was potentially also the most fulfilling, or if you have another one that was perhaps more fulfilling.
That's a tough question because there's different ways, right? So the Animorphs books for me were very creatively challenging, but that was for a completely different reason than, say, like my Time Shifters book that came out prior to that, because Animorphs for me was, at least right up front, was like, okay, there's a built-in fandom, and I've been on the other side of this, when you hear that there's a movie coming out or something based on something you love, or you just don't want to see it get messed up. So I felt that right away, and nobody was putting that pressure on me. I was putting that pressure on myself because I understand that so well. And so there was a lot of pressure to do it honestly as I could, and try to, create the world that seemed as close to, for as many people as I could, so I didn't take a lot of liberties where maybe in my own stuff I definitely would have made it a lot weirder or sillier in places. So that was creatively challenging for me at the time because I'd never done anything like that, where I was adapting work that wasn't mine into something, and it had been around for like 25 years, and people are absolutely married to this fandom in a lot of ways, and rightly so, because it's amazing, and I didn't want to be the guy who ruined it all for everybody. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I wanted to satisfy as many people as I could with that. But like with Time Shifters, that's a different kind of a thing because I was trying to create a different kind of story with that one, with a much more of an emotional, like, gut punch at the end, even though it's silly and fun. And for me, that was finding the balance there, just from a storytelling perspective. It was challenging but fun. I mean, all of this is fun. Even if I make it sound like it's just a terrible trudge to get through all this stuff, I love it all. It's just a different problem for every day, and I really enjoyed kind of finding my way through it over the years.
Yeah. I would definitely say that, at least with the graphic novels, I mean, I've seen nothing but positive reception. Is that kind of what you've seen as well, or? Well,
I generally try to avoid reading reviews and things because inevitably,
fair.
I could have 1 million reviews, literally 1 million, come out and say this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen, and one person might go, and then that's the only one I'm going to ever remember, right? That's the one that's going to bother me,
right?
And that's just how I am, and I just know that's how I am. And I do know that there's a lot of people out there that wanted it to be darker and grittier, and they thought my art was too juvenile looking. And part of that for me is like, it's Scholastic, guys. If anybody thought Scholastic was going to bring out a dark, gritty version of Animorphs, they were fooling themselves, and they own the property you know, as far as I can tell, like forever.
I bet you they would have hated it. I bet you they would have hated it. These are kids. What are you doing? Oh my God, this is too much. Exactly. How could you possibly do that? Listen, I know Animorphs was dark, but I think you took it too far. I fucking guarantee you. I fucking hate these people. I'm so glad you're not fucking listening to them. You're just doing your best. You're trying to convey the message and just like translate it through your fucking vision. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. And you are doing the right thing by just avoiding those. Because I've been reading a book. And it's called The Artist's Way. Very good. But the one of the things that it actually says about criticism is that there is the criticism that makes you go, aha, I knew it, or that was the problem. Then you feel like you do something. But the worst shit that poisons everything is the one that's just like, I don't know about this. It's just, no, that sucks. Nope. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I was actually I commended Scholastic many times for I really thought I was going to get pushback for any type of violence, you know, like with Tobias stealing eyes and, you know, Marco being bit in half, you know, as a shark or whatever, and or a dolphin. And while they weren't as graphic as I thought, I was still like, it's Scholastic, and they're pretty conservative, and most of their stuff's in schools and libraries, and they didn't push back one time on any of that stuff. The only note I ever got was the mall scene, and I think it was book 5, where Axe is morphine and he's running through, and the security guards are blocking them from leaving. Right? Well, they had guns. They had guns, and it was in the book, but I couldn't do that. They said, please don't use guns in this scene. It's too many guns. And I completely understood that. But also I was like, well, then how the hell is just a guy standing at the door going to stop this giant alien guy from running through him, right?
Yeah.
So I gave it some thought, and I researched like 90s tasers. Like security guards had them. If you look at those pages, the guy's holding like a big clunky yellow looking taser gun. Yeah, I mean, it was like... something's got to be there, because otherwise it looks weird. Yeah, and I understood both sides of it, but that was a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they were amenable to the.
They've been pretty good.
The tweak, at least. Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah, you have to do the ET walkie-talkie thing.
Yes, I was just getting ready to say that, but I'm like, I'm so much older than these guys. I don't want to date myself that.
No, we've seen ET. We've seen ET. Well, yeah, it was so exciting to see them, like the Animorphs books, come out in graphic novel form. Honestly, I wasn't following anything in the background at the time, so when they started hitting shelves, it was just this incredible, exciting novelty to me. And I guess I was curious to hear in your own words how you came to get to be involved with the project, and like, was it something that was pitched to you, or was it your own project that you kind of pitched to Scholastic and then got blessings from the power that be?
Also, I'll give you the kind of longer version of this. It's not too long. And if I'm getting in the weeds, you guys need to tell me. I don't want to bore you.
No, we love the weeds. We love the weeds.
So I had done Time Shifters had come out in like this late spring, early summer of like 2017. And the reviews were amazing. Like, I'd never had reviews like that good to date. And so it was really positive. And my editor at Scholastic was like, "Hey, let's go ahead and get like a synopsis for books 2 and 3, so I can get those, bring those in and pitch those in house, and we can maybe start getting going on more books." So I was like, "Great!" I wrote like a 15-page, like super detailed synopsis for book 2. And then a slightly shorter version for book 3. But it took me a lot of my summer to do that, along with some other stuff. And then they decided that they were no longer they didn't want to do any more sci-fi, is what they said. No more sci-fi graphic novels. They were really focused on their slice of life stuff. So a lot of their Babysitter's Club and Smile and all those ones, And I get that. Those feel very middle school. I guess that's where they're making most of their money at. So they said, well, we're not going to do those. So I was crushed, like absolutely crushed, because I thought this was the next thing. And I had just been let go from Hallmark like a year before that. So I thought this would have been great. And now I'm feeling like the rug got pulled out from under me. And at the time I was working on Time Shifters as I was being let go from Hallmark. And I wasn't fired or anything crazy. I mean, it was like they were letting rounds and rounds of artists go because they just couldn't. I just like to say that. I didn't
Yeah.
do anything creepy, guys. There was nothing weird. But
Really
I was
happy
like
for
in
that.
last roundup with it.
Yeah.
So I was kind of crushed, and I was pretty much ready to just quit comics because it can be so hard. Put in so much work. You spend like years working on something, and it comes out, and if it's just dead on arrival, now you're expected to just go on to the next thing, and that's kind of hard. And so, but then Scholastic reached out to me around like November of that year, and we're like, "Hey, so kicking around this idea of converting one of our IPs to like graphic novels, and we were wondering if you'd be interested in adapting that." And they were very vague about the whole thing, and I was very like, nah, I kind of just wanted to do my own thing. I didn't say that, but
Yeah.
I was really just want to do my own thing. It felt like going backwards, be doing my own, independent, indie comics and stuff, to then go back and be doing somebody else's stuff. But again, I needed money. I had no work at the time, and I wasn't even sure if I still wanted to do comics. They then, okay, great, that's great. If you'd be interested in checking it out, the title is called Animorphs. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. And I was like, you kidding me? Yeah. I was like, you should have led with that. So then they asked me if I would do like 7 or 10 pages, and they had very specific pages that they wanted me to do. So I would just do these pages, and I was getting paid for just doing these pages, which was nice of them because I would have done that for free, just because it's like a tryout. And so I did those, and at the time I thought, oh, they just want me to do this. And then I found out after the fact that they had asked several artists to do the same thing. And I didn't find that out until after the fact. And then I kind of felt guilty for even talking about it online, because there was some artists out there that had tried out for this and didn't get the job. So then I was like, now I feel like, Anyway, but I was super excited about it. That's kind of how it happened. And then there was about 6 months of, they were kind of contractual stuff with Catherine and Michael, and they were kind of handling that on the side. And then once that part was wrapped up, then they'd get back to me, and then they signed me for books 1 through 3. And then when those were almost done, they re-upped for 4 through 6. And that's kind of the whole story on that.
It's really cool.
No,
I mean, I can
so awesome.
I can get into whatever details of that if you guys want to go deeper. I just don't want to bore you with all the.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, it sounds like, in terms of, and again, I don't know how much you can say, but it sounds like they've very much been successful for Scholastic, which makes me happy, because I know back in the day they tried to do kind of a bit of a rebrand where they were like re-releasing them with different covers. And I think that tapered off around book 4 or 5.
I think it got through book 7.
Oh, 7.
And the only reason I know that
good.
is because I had requested copies of like digital copies of like the prose books, so then I could I could drag a select copy to paste it into the board balloon, so I didn't have to retype the entire thing. So I was kind of breaking it down that way, and they only had books 1 through 7 like that. The rest of them were not digitized.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I know that the fans kind of got dumped on that, get excited again for 7 books, and then we're not doing it again. And that's kind of seems like what's happened with the Animorphs graphic novels too. So 1 through 6, and I don't know what the future holds for that. I'm hoping that there's more, but I don't.
Yeah, no, that. I mean, I'm obviously very hopeful too, but I get that Scholastic has its own kind of background stuff, as it were. I guess then it sounds like you definitely had like a past knowledge and connection to the Animorphs franchise, and I was curious, like, were you an original reader, or were you kind of a latecomer? Or?
I wasn't an original reader at all, because I had just started college when those came out. So it was like that, not really the best time to start reading like a series of books, Unfortunately, if I had gone to college 1 year later, I would have been 100% all in Animorphs right then, because I am all in with it now, because I got to, honestly, I had been aware of the covers, because who couldn't have been aware of the covers, right? Yeah. Just from a pop culture perspective, right? I had watched some of the horrible Nickelodeon show which I
Right.
bought season 1, by
Yes.
the way. I own it. It's terrible, but I own it. And no, it was just
Yeah, I get you.
I wasn't that into it. I kind of missed it by about a year, and then it slowly started becoming memes and stuff again. And that's when I kind of was like, I need to get back and maybe start reading this series. And I'd bought book 1, and it had just kind of sat on my shelf for a while, and I never got around to reading it, just because of life, you know. And then as soon as this came around, but then I was scared to read ahead because I was like, I'm going to jinx myself. If I read past this book, I'm jinxing myself, you know. So, and just so everybody knows, I never did. I never jinxed this. This is not my fault. If it doesn't happen, no more happen. I never did get but now I feel like maybe I could go and start reading them all straight through. So
You might push the universe into making it happen because, like, oh well, I'm prepared for this, and I have notes for you people. First of all, yeah.
I'd really like to, because man, I really wanted to get into the Elements stuff, and I missed it by like one book. You know, just things like that. Like I felt like the story really kind of gets past all the introductions. Like everybody's got their intro book, you know, and then there's you know, just a little bit more going on. But like once that's all done, then I felt like the story kind of got going a little bit more. Like it felt like like the stories just felt bigger after that, or more epic. And maybe it was because of the Elements stuff, because you know it just felt like more like a faded kind of a thing, or the world just felt bigger after that, and I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I still get a chance.
Absolutely, I mean, I'm hopeful. I will say I definitely agree with the fact that I think it really does start to kick off into more of like a grand scale. And I mean, this is much further down the road, so it was always kind of a pipe dream, but I was really hoping they might get to some of the stuff with David in the David arc.
I didn't even want to mention that, because that's even more heartbreaking. That story is so good and dark and kind of messed up in all the right ways. Ugh.
Yes. It's great. No, I love it. It's interesting then, because, you know, obviously you're familiar with the original covers and how they had those kind of 5-step sequences. Yeah. And I was really interested to see how you kind of incorporated that in the covers, in terms of having the 4 steps at the top, and then setting that apart from like a more fulsome illustration to kind of draw the reader in. And I was curious to know what was your thought process behind how you set up the covers.
I'll say that going into that was the most terrifying thing of the whole books for me, was like, especially book 1. Like once we established whatever book 1 was going to look like, that's the trade dress and we're good, right? But I worked with a guy named Phil at Scholastic, who's one of the designers, and he's really good at what he does. But we brainstormed and went back and forth for weeks and weeks and weeks, showing, you know, I would do like 7 or 8 different versions of a cover, you know, and because we tried everything from, I tried illustrating like basically just kind of the steps of a lizard, you know, for the first one. I'd never wanted to do like full illustration thing. I kind of wanted to stay more to the iconic kind of covers that they were doing, or something that needed to feel that way. They ultimately decided to go different way. You know, they wanted to do like the illustration cover or whatever. So, and that was fine. But you know, then we decided to do the morphing thing at the top to kind of pull it all together. But I know people have liked them. They like the covers. They're happy with it. I'm still a little on the fence about how I feel about them. I think they're fine, but I'm always going to be critical of my stuff. You know, I'm always going to be second guessing it. And I kind of wish we could have come up with something just as iconic as those weird, original covers that were so good. I mean, they're so weird and but charming. I'm not, it's not me bagging on them at all. I love them. I even love like the bad, just the bad faces in between that everybody likes to make fun of. You know, the morphs,
the smear frames. Yeah.
It's all good. That's all part of the Animorphs fandom, and I just wanted to lean into that as hard as we could.
I getcha. Well, I mean, it is its own charm because when we spoke to David Mattingly about it, he made it very clear that nobody had ever really tried to do that sort of thing, and he wanted to have an interesting approach. So it was very much like trailblazing type stuff, and so we got what we got, and there's nothing like it, and there really hasn't been anything like it since. But as critical as you are, what I do appreciate about you including the little strip at the top is that it's a very nice nod, and it kind of accentuates the Animorphs logo itself, because even if all you do is end up looking at the word and thinking, oh yeah, Animorphs, and then you see that, it doesn't it actually just makes itself part of the experience by calling back to it in a really tasteful way. So, you still get it, but you're not making the cover, super noisy, trying to include the entire thing that maybe people would want to expect. We have this scene, we have this character, also we have an entire transformation sequence, and we fit that all in with the logo, and it's just it's I think that was a pretty good compromise. Although I am still curious as to what you might have preferred, because I mean, like I said, I think you hit it pretty well with that.
I don't know. I guess I'm happy with him. I'm not. It's not that I'm not happy with him, and it may just be a product of going back and forth so much, so many sketches, so many ideas that you get 15, 20 ideas out there, and then ultimately you guys are just like, all right, we gotta pick something, and there's always kind of in the back of your mind, what if we pushed that one a little further, this one, but again, I'm happy with them. I don't know if I had been left to my own devices with no other input, the covers probably would have been different and probably not as good.
Well, they're good now, and I think they would have been good either way. Yeah, I actually do believe that.
Thanks.
Don't worry, I'm not going to be kissing your ass that much, but I just think that what you're doing is actually really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree. And, I think one of the really fascinating things for me was how you did that translation just with the story in general, because obviously, graphic novels are a very different media, and you clearly had to do a lot of thinking about what parts of the text are actually going to make it in and what things are going to be conveyed visually instead. And so I was just curious to know a little bit more what your process was for kind of outlining out the novels and then making those sorts of calls on what would get explicitly illustrated versus implied versus what's going to be said in the text, etc.
Tried to keep as much of the actual dialogue. I think if you probably went through, it's almost verbatim. As much as I possibly could, I tried to not leave out anything, to an extent. I mean, there is some things I kind of glossed over a little bit, but I just know that there was fans out there. There's going to be a fan for every page, right? Everybody's going to have a scene that they don't want to have cut. They're going to have a piece of dialogue that is very important to them. So I was very aware of that as I was going, and so I tried to. My goal to begin with was, we're keeping it all. I'm going in with the mindset that I'm keeping it all, and then we'll start cutting away when we have to, as we have to.
Right.
And when I turned in the way Scholastic works, is different than say how Dark Horse or a traditional comic book publisher works, where traditional comic book, to get something picked up, usually you do 10 pages, along with an outline or something. You do 10 pages of art. Well, with Scholastic, you have to pencil the entire book. It's all the whole book has to be sketched with final word balloons, and that's basically your first draft. So you really want to hope you didn't go too far astray, because you can't just make a quick edit to a comic book page, because now you're talking about panels and the way panels balance against each other, or the flow of the page, or the turn of a page.
Right.
So I just kind of would start penciling. I would break it down into scenes, basically. I'd say, okay, this is Jake's room. This is scene 1. We're in Jake's room. Even if Jake stepped out of the room to go to the kitchen for a minute, that's now scene 2. Even if he comes back, and the reason I did that in my head was just because that way I could just pencil a scene, and then see if I fit in the dialogue without it seeming to take over the entire page. And if I could do things with just visually in the background, or have things happening in the background while other things were happening, which I tried to do as much as I could, That was the way I went with as much of that as I could. And I did throw in some of my own jokes, ongoing jokes as I went through it. I process was pretty straightforward, I think. I kind of expected Scholastic to have a lot more notes for me, especially when I turned in like a 240-page first draft, and I was like, I kind of expected him to come back and say, well, we need to get this down to like 150, and I didn't know. I was so scared because I didn't know where I was going to cut. I didn't feel like any part of it really could get cut and it would still flow as well. Not that my story. I just mean for the story, the actual.
Oh
book,
yeah, no, absolutely.
There was there's so much meat in that first book. Like, I think if they wanted to do a like a live action thing, it'd be like that first book would be a 2-hour movie, like a popcorn movie. It could then be followed up by like a series, like a TV series or something, where it can focus a little bit smaller, because the second book is a lot smaller in focus. And I don't know. I'm probably rambling now at this point.
No. I agree, though. I think the first book is so not just important from a setting perspective, but also there is so much plot that happens in that, and I don't know how you would ever really condense it. And I mean, the TV show tried with a very middling success. So
I think you're being very generous with.
I am.
I don't know how well they tried.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a bit of a soft spot for it, mainly just because I was of the age to be watching it, and they filmed a lot of it actually where we live in Toronto, very close to where I grew up. So it was very much like, as a kid, like, oh, I know exactly where that is kind of thing. And I think that gave it a little bit more of like a rosy retrospection. So
that's pretty cool too, though.
It's weird.
And like I said, I like watching it. It's charming. It's just... it's just some... Ad 90s Nickelodeon,
It is. It's always amusing to me that Shawn Ashmore was in it. I don't know. It's very, very funny to look at in retrospect. Another thing I kind of wanted to touch on was, a big draw for a lot of folks who are interested in the books is the concept of the shape-shifting and like morphing and such. And I think people who are really into that aspect had forgotten to some degree how visceral some of the changes were when they were described in the books or series. And so I was actually really pleasantly surprised to kind of see how you preserve that element in your depiction of them. And I guess I was curious, one, how you settled on that visual approach, and two, if Scholastic ever had any notes on it too.
Nope, Scholastic never had any notes on that stuff, which, unless you count like an LOL, sometimes I literally have notes that just said LOL, or whatever,
oh my gosh.
I appreciated,
Yeah.
But for me, it was just like, I've always been a fan of like when you watch like a movie or something or TV, when somebody's suiting up, for example, and there's lots of quick cuts, you don't see the whole thing. You just see like the gloves going on or the boots or whatever, and so that was kind of the direction I took with that. But I also, as far as what I chose to draw, like, first of all, I had like a hierarchy. It was like, if it had teeth in it, the description, then I'm drawing that. That's the most horrifying thing. There's like the one where they were, it was described, the one where they were birds, and it described that like their teeth or whatever, like the teeth were still attached to the beaks and stuff as it was morphing. And to me, that was like, I'm drawing that. Yeah. That just sounds horrible. I'm gonna. I know not all of it was as upsetting as some of it was, but I enjoyed those pages a lot. Probably more than I should have, just because it was like, it just felt like, oh, this is the weird stuff that I like to draw, So,
yeah. Well, I mean, would you say that one? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I can relate to that because I draw the stuff myself, and it's a good creative exercise. Being like, how do I want to make this look? What would that be like? If somebody tells me that, what do I think it would really look like? And it's really satisfying to try to get to try to visualize that and make it real. And I mean, I was like, I've said it a few times on the show. I think probably not a bunch, but when I was like 9 or something, and I saw The Fly on TV. And he was going through all the horrible changes, and his fingernails and teeth were falling out, and his skin was getting all fucked up, and people are like, oh yeah, man, like my age being like, oh, that thing was disgusting, and I'm still like, and I'm just like, man, that was the coolest shit to me, and I was like leaning in, like, wow, look at that, That's really interesting, you know?
Yeah, it's super gross and also very interesting. I mean, and that was exactly my approach to it. Was like, this is where I'm having fun. I'm having way too much fun on these pages.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Would you say that the bird one was perhaps one of your favorite ones to depict, or was there another one that really stood out as like, this is the one that I loved nailing it?
That one sticks out for me a lot, and I don't know why. I'm trying to think of what other ones stuck out for me a lot. For me, it was a time for me to kind of take a break or a breather from having to draw these animals accurately, for like a page or two, like, because that was a lot. That was a lot. The animals, because I'm not naturally somebody who just goes around drawing nature and animals and stuff. So that took a lot of research and lots of just time to do this. So when I got to the morphine scenes, it didn't matter, right? If one leg was longer than the other, or the face wasn't weird, or the eyes were in the wrong spot, like, that's part of the morphine thing, I could just do whatever I wanted. Yeah, so some of my favorite pages.
That's really cool.
Probably not for the
I think
reasons people think, but yeah, it was mostly so I could just kind of be lazy a little bit and also make myself laugh.
Yeah, have a bit of freedom with it. No, that totally makes sense to me. And I think as well, like, that was always part of the descriptions for them as well in the books. And I think at least I remember when the book started coming out, some people were like, I was expecting it to look a lot more like smooth or something. And I was like, I don't think we read the same books. Nope. This is definitely how I imagined it.
Yeah, because some of the descriptions are like horrifying. Like, her face juts out, and her eyes were on the side of her head looking at me. I'm like, God, I don't any of that.
Yeah, no, it's deeply amusing to me. I guess when you were working on kind of the most recent one that came out, number 6, obviously, like, we don't know what will happen next, and we already talked a little bit as to like how, like, the story really opens out. But when you were working on that 6th book, I was curious if there were any particular, like, segments or scenes that really stood out to you in terms of, like, I really want to make sure I nail this in case I don't get to do more or anything like that.
It was the scene with Jake in his head with the Yerk. Like, that was something I started thinking about, how the hell I was gonna do that. About the time I was working on, like, book 4, which is just kicking around in my head, like, how am I gonna make this interesting? Because it's going to be a lot of, I knew it was going to be a conversation between him and another version of him. I kind of knew that from the beginning, but I couldn't figure out how to make it interesting until I figured out that I should do the black and white kind of thing and desaturate the but that was one of the scenes that was important for me that I nailed that. But let's see, if we want to talk about a scene that I felt like I had to nail, would have been book 3 with the Tobias book, when he loses his shit there, and there's a lot of emotion on that, and I don't normally. My stuff is usually pretty funny, like my own personal stuff. It's comedy, adventure type stuff. So I had to really kind of buckle up to. I knew that people were going to be looking for that scene specifically, and so. I know you were talking about book 6, but like that one will always give me nightmares. That book 3, just the sheer amount of stress I put myself under to figure out a way to do it that worked, and I kind of took from that, because I'm sure you probably remember, like, the word balloons were like inverted, so it was black and white, and I kind of did something like that in book 6 too with their word balloons. So I kind of stole from that a little bit, but that was really important that I got that.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting artistic decision. And, like, honestly, like, his crash out is a pretty important part of the book. So I definitely can understand why, you felt like you had a lot of pressure to do it, especially given it wasn't necessarily your usual kind of fare. So, I thought it was done very authentically. So I appreciate that. And I did really like the word bubble choice. So
well, I'm glad. I'm glad it worked out, because, I've been thinking about it for so long. And then when I did it and turned it in, I was like, oh, God, I hope I hadn't just thought about this and probably should have rethought about it. I don't know, but no, I was really happy with the way it came out too. So, but I did have to tell Scholastic, because they like to take my stuff, all my art, and they run it through like a filter, like Photoshop, and they raise the saturation like 20%. I mean, I know that they've told me that, like on every page, 20%, because apparently, however I color is too muted for them, and that's fine, right? That's the way they want to do it. But I was telling them very specifically, you cannot do that on these pages because you will screw up the saturation thing that I'm doing. And it came out fine, but we had to have a little conversation just so they knew that I was specifically trying to do this. It wasn't, it's not a mistake.
Well, I'm glad they were flexible on that, because I think that would have definitely clashed with what you were going for.
Yes, so. Well, I was just afraid that they'd bump up the saturation and it would completely negate the entire effect that I was trying to go for.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad that they're listening to you. It sounds like it's been a generally positive experience to actually work on this project, whether it gets to go the full stretch or not.
It's been great. I mean, Phil will tell you, the designer guy, that I've butted heads with them on every book cover, but only because I care. It's not because I'm trying to be a jerk or they're being jerks or whatever. We're just going back and forth, and I'm just been kind of adamant about a couple things, because I'm deep in these books. I'm deep in the narrative of everything, and I know the things that I want to focus on. It's not always the things that they want to focus on, and it's not always the things that marketing says is going to get people to pick up this book based on this image on the cover and stuff. So all that makes sense, right? That all kind of comes back to me working at Hallmark and having to work with marketers and people who I don't necessarily agree with, but they're the ones who know how, to bring the money in or to get customers to do whatever, and so there was a lot of back and forth with the covers, and I didn't win most of them, but we came to pretty good compromises, I think. Like, I was never like so angry about it, but that was the only time there was like real butting of heads on the covers.
Yeah.
No, that totally makes sense.
You can feel the love in them, and you fight for the things you love. So it doesn't matter you win or lose. It's the care is there. So I mean, but it's still good to know that they're, at least on the covers. It's really, I guess that's the thing you had to fight about the most, right? Was just like covers. Otherwise, everything else goes generally your way or the way it's going to go or whatever. Yeah,
but it was weird because like I'd get notes from people who clearly didn't know what Animorphs was, right? It'd be like notes, like, hey, does this character have to be blue? Axe. Does Axe have, or can it be?
What the fuck? What the fuck are you talking about?
It was just like, it was weird. Like, this just some of the notes were so weird, and then it was fun because I'd say I'd get my editorial notes, but then I'd also get the second round. I called it Fashion Police, and it would be the same people who were like the editors and stuff who, and they're doing their job. I'm sure they were asked to look for inconsistencies and things like from page to page. Make sure that if the guy's got white stripes on his shirt here, he's got white stripes in the next page or whatever. I'd say 9 times out of 10, that was super helpful, right? Because I didn't catch things like that sometimes. You're doing so many pages and you're working on them, so fast and not always in the same order. It's easy to kind of lose track of that. But then sometimes I get notes that they were just ridiculous. And I'm trying to think in my head now. So I'm not going to come up with anything.
That's okay.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you even talking about? And but that was always as simple as me just going, I'm not doing that. Like, they never really, as long as it was interior stuff, all I had to do was put it in writing, kind of like, I'm not making changes on this page, I'm not doing this change. And they never push back.
And that's that.
They're really, as much as it sounds like we were like fighting or whatever, it's like, I love working with Scholastic. They're great. And I think the butting of heads and conversations we had about stuff where we didn't always get agreed on everything, I think only made the product better for the fans. Right? So,
yeah. I get you. It's working with art through adversity, you're working with the limitations and all that kind of thing. And even if it's not like a big corporate thing, if you're working with teams of people, there will be some kind of conflict anyway. And, making your way through that so that, it gets done and everybody, is able to just say like, all right, move ahead with this. It's just the way it is. But yeah, I mean, it didn't sound to me like you were fighting all the time. It was like just some things, like knowing that the covers, the covers, like that was mostly it. But everything else, you're just like, yeah, I'm surprised that they let me get away with this shit, man. Which is great. Well, that's actually really good.
And that's kind of what, like, a lot of times I would be like, all right, if you guys have notes on this cover, that's fine, right? Because you let me have the bird ripping eyeballs out on the inside. And you didn't say anything, so I'm gonna.
So we'll take it.
Choose my battles here. Yeah, this was fine.
Yeah. No, that's good. I guess, one of the things I think about a lot is, how much the series has had an outsized, long-lasting impact on, like, the cultural psyche. As, like, for a kid's series from the 90s, the fact that we're still talking about it, like, 35 years later is pretty incredible. And, I really do think that the graphic novel adaptation has kind of continued to add to that legacy for the series. And so I was curious to know how you feel about your role in kind of getting to contribute to it and furthering it as it continues to kind of impact people.
I'm really happy to say I'm a part of it. I think as far as fandoms go, I probably don't need to tell you guys this, but like as far as fandoms go, I find the Animorphs fandom like one of the most welcoming and warm group of people. I mean, even when people don't like something, they're just like,
yeah,
they don't got to shit all over everybody else who does like it. I never get that vibe from anybody in the years that I've been working on these things now, and it's been absolutely my favorite part of working on them is getting the fan interaction and getting to do podcasts like this with you guys. And this is the most fun for me, and
yeah.
I forgot, what was the question again? I got to ramble.
Oh, basically like how you felt about like furthering its legacy and being a part of it.
I would like to think that even if the graphic novels end with book 6, that at least it brought it back up into the pop culture for just 4 or 5 years, and hope maybe that's enough to get it. There's a studio that's got the rights for the movie stuff right now, but like. Doesn't sound like that's going very well. And I would just like to think that just bringing it back into the pop cultures, in the eye a little bit more into it, that it will, as a result, can give it even more longevity. Like maybe there'll be other opportunities moving forward, down the road, just because it, kind of breathes some more life into the IP.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I hope for everybody.
Yeah, I get you. I've come to see that over the years, and this has been kind of picking up speed, is that independent projects or just teams of people, they will get together and make something amazing. And I mean, even in an unofficial capacity, it's just like, yes, we're going to do this thing. It is definitely this thing that however, nobody's making money from it. We just want this to be great because we love it. And it's crazy when people do that. And there's a bunch of examples that you can find now, and I guess there's probably going to be some group of people at some point saying, oh yeah, we're going to do an Animorphs thing. We're going to animate it, or we're going to act it, or like we got this like CG artist who does whatever, because like, yeah, people just want to see this stuff, have that life breathed into it. Or the people who say, yeah, I saw this thing, and no matter how good or bad it was, I just really want to see it this way, and I think that's entirely possible, even if nobody throws it down as an investment or something.
I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been like a fan, or maybe there has been fan films for the Animorph stuff. Because I mean, how many have we seen for Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or whatever, where people take their favorite character and do like a side story, based on that or whatever? I mean, I don't feel like with today's technology where everybody's got a phone in their pocket that can record movie quality stuff, and
yeah,
people know how to do After Effects or whatever the standard is right now for that stuff.
Well, my thought on that. Go ahead, Zil.
Well, I know there actually has been like one or two, but I think one of the challenges that I think a lot of people who wanted to try and translate it into the film medium has kind of faced is that at a base level, you need a quite high amount of like technical skill with like production values and working into like CGI stuff, just because like
Yeah, I
the
guess you would
morphing
have
is
to
a
do the
very
morphing.
important part. Yeah, and that like it's kind of hard to escape not doing it, and so I think because even if you didn't do it, then like you have to have like some sort of investment in like animals that are trained to do things, and I think that that kind of combination has always made it very challenging to do. The thing I would say is I'm surprised that no one's tried to do like a kind of quasi animated version of that, but again, I mean, animation takes a lot of work too, and so I imagine just because there's a very high amount of work required just to do like the most entry level of stuff, I think is probably likely the kind of prohibiting factor.
I guess you're right, because there's lots of aliens and there's lots of. It would require a hell of a lot of CG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of disagree a little bit because I think it has a lot to do with the fact that most of the story is in word form and you have to read it. Star Wars and Lord of the Rings gets the advantage of them being movies, so people see it and they got these visuals that they can just kind of like spawn their own thing and piggyback off of. You got to read the Animorphs. You can watch the old 90s show, but no, who's really going to do that now? It's hard to get. Not a lot of people, like fewer and fewer people have seen it with like growing population, all that kind of stuff. So it's harder to keep that kind of thing going when you can't share clips all the time, especially if it's not very popular to begin with. So there's like all those layers, but if you got to read it, that's a problem. However, like, that's one of the reasons that anything visual is good. So you made these, and maybe that'll give somebody a spark visually, and you can get that sort of thing. I feel like it really has a lot to do with that. Like, I know it's like, oh, there's aliens and this and that, but why not just a really emotional scene of somebody just kind of walking around at the zoo, or like with a friend, and then just kind of talking about like how life has been hard, ever since getting their powers or something like that, and then just like, trouble, and then they're about to morph, and you could do so many things, but it's hard to imagine that if you have to read it and people aren't going to read it. Yeah.
I think you're very right.
So doing the work for potential future fans to just be like, I think I want to film a scene with Rachel and Jake just talking at the table. That'd be cool.
There'd be a ton of people that would watch that because, it's something, right? It's something new. People would be very excited about just simple little things like that too, right? But
no, absolutely. I guess then, when it comes to like that sort of impact, I mean, again, I think giving the books kind of a visual form, like we just said, I think has a very different impact from, say, like just reprinting the covers. And I think it is at all of our hopes that like that continues to lead to more. I guess I was curious, a lot of people have who have read the original books as kids can now like kind of share this with their own kids. And I guess I was curious how you felt about that element of like it almost being passed down to, the kids of people who originally read the books and felt that they were good.
That's actually kind of part of one of my favorite parts of this whole journey I've been on, was like when I'll be at like a Comic-Con, right? So I'll be tabled at a Comic-Con, and I'm sitting there and I got all my books on my table and I'm just whatever, watching people go by. And my favorite thing is like a family will go by and like, there's eyes constantly looking all over the place, right? But I'll see like an adult kind of just glance over, kind of to just not interested, but they'll glance over and then they'll just stop. And I know exactly what just happened. They just saw Animorphs, and they instantly remember that, and then they walk right over to my table, and we get to have a really fun, long conversation about how they read them, and then they buy them for their kids right there, and their kids don't care, but they're like, "Mommy or Daddy read this when I was your age. This is my favorite thing," and the kids are just like, "Oh my god," but it doesn't matter because the parents are so excited, and then. Which is not normally the case with graphic novels. A lot of times the kids are the ones that are excited, and the parents are like, "Oh, comics."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been the opposite, and then I get kids coming back, like even the next day sometimes if they're there, if it's like a 2 or a 3 day con, to say I read it last night, and they're so excited, and their parents are standing right there, and they're super excited with them, and I love that so much. Just as a parent myself, anything you can do,
Yeah.
bonding with your kids, and especially bringing something from your childhood that that you could share with your kids too, and have them actually be genuinely excited about it. That's pretty awesome, and I don't think it happens that often. So I'm very thrilled and honored to kind of be in that position. Sometimes it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
No, I agree. I think it's such a unique thing to be able to get to do with like your kids, and I'm really glad that that's been kind of something that a lot of the fans have been able to do with their own. I guess as kind of a final question, at least for me, I think there's a lot that can be said in terms of the themes of the series and how they've kind of become more and more relevant over time. And I think I can safely say that those themes have kind of carried through to the graphic novels as well, given how you've kind of captured the story. Are there any themes that you really are hoping readers take away from what you've kind of created, or any you hope to emphasize further if you get to do some of the future chapters?
Well, I'd like to think that I'm not, since I'm just adapting these stories, like I think the themes are there, right? The themes are there, and I do, and some of this may not all be 100% accurate or whatever, but like over the years, I've heard like, a lot the furries, right? A lot of those people grew up with Animorphs, right? And they've kind of maybe evolved, their personalities and stuff and the things that they're interested in. And lots of LGBTQ, stuff too. Lots of people grew up with that, and they can relate to a lot of these characters. And like Marco, I know there's a lot of people who like to think that he's like bi, and I think that's all amazing, right? And you know what? When I was reading those books, none of that is in the books, right? That's all stuff that fans have kind of adopted or gotten into their own headcanon over the years. And I was very careful to not remove anything that or change anything about any of the characters that may in any way contradict those people's feelings about those characters. Because I think that that's important, that if people want to see themselves in these characters or see aspects of these characters, who am I to dictate, what they're doing? And so I was just trying to be very aware of all that. Like, if something inspired these kids, in their lives, I'm not going to take that out. I don't want to be a person. And so I made sure to leave that's another reason why I made sure to leave as much intact as possible, because, different people took different things from these books, and it's followed a lot of them through their adulthood, in their families. And the last thing I want is for them to like, be super excited and pick these things up and find that they've been like whitewashed or, just edited for content for today's, sensitivities and stuff, and I just.
Yeah, I can see that you want people to, you're doing your best to translate it, and, sometimes that can be kind of boring to me when people, like, a superhero movie is a really easy example, where you can get an origin story and it's like, okay, we've seen this before, or just like any other kind of story adapted or whatever. I like it when people do their own thing with something like that. However, with this story, number one, this is probably the best adaptation it's gotten in terms of like it not being the books, and second, it's still a really intensive creative exercise. You saying you're not going to change anything doesn't mean that you get to just kind of coast. How do you do it? There's so many choices to make. So, I guess I'm saying this more for people listening who think, oh, it must have been easy to just read the books and then draw the scenes, right? Yeah, fucking no. You do it. I swear to fucking God, you will. Oh, yeah. Do it, and do it on time, and do it to quality, and do it the way that other people want it to, and be ready just in case that maybe the thing that you drew has to be redone in like a huge fucking block. Like, get at it. It's just to let you know it's still a huge deal that somebody can come along and say, I don't want to change anything, and then get it out there with like eyes on them and stuff. It's a lot. It's definitely a lot. People need to understand this.
Thanks for saying that, because that's also very true. I was cranking these things out in 6 months, all by myself.
Wow.
Holy shit!
That's an incredible pace, honestly. Like, wow.
I would like you to plug anything and everything of yours for at least one person who would come and like get a thing. Fucking give this guy support, okay?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't set out to do 6-month graphic novels that are 200 plus pages, but what happened is okay, so I told you guys at the beginning like how I got the job, right? Well,
yeah.
They asked me in November if I was interested. I did the tryout. They said, this looks great. We're going to make you an offer here, but we got to deal with this other stuff, right? Then it was January, and then it was February, and then it was March, and then it was April. And I was like, what the hell is going on, right? I can't sit around and wait for this to maybe never happen. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I had another pitch that I pitched to Oni, or at the time it was Lion Forge. Sorry, Lion Forge. And at that same time they called me and they're like, "Hey, we really like this pitch." And it was I don't know if you guys have seen this Camp Whatever series I did.
Yes.
They were like, "We love this. We want to do like a series, like a 3-book deal." And I've never had a multi-book deal at that point, right? Ever. And which guaranteed me to be able to slow pace my story and plant seeds and know that I was going to get to finish it. So I was like, yes, I would love to do that. I'd love to do that. And I signed the contract, and the very next day, Scholastic got back to me. And they're like, "Hey, we're ready to go." And you think I was going to say no? Oh, it was, Yeah. So that made me do it. I did 6 Animorphs and 3 Camp Whatever in 4.5 years. And each one of those was over 200 pages. And I penciled, inked, lettered, colored, wrote everything. Yeah, I almost died.
What the fuck, dude? What the fuck? That is inhuman.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is inhuman.
Oh
Laugh, people. I said a word. Fucking, it's good. Shit.
Yeah, well, I don't want to do that again. It was kind of out of necessity, right? So,
yeah, you didn't have a choice.
I wasn't going to say no to the Animorph stuff at all. I'd already signed the contract for Camp Whatever, so
yeah,
got to do it.
Wow. Well, yeah.
My family didn't see me very much for a little while there, but
it's just it's like Hell in a Cell. It's like, thank you for what you have done. No, never do anything like that again.
Yeah, thank you for your service, kind of thing.
Don't ever do that
again. Yeah. It's like I have buddies at like Comic Cons that would come up to my table like from like a year or two. They hadn't seen me for like 2 years and whatever. Now I've got like a full table of books, and they're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like, I know. I probably shouldn't even be at the show, guys. I should be home working, but I'm here.
Man.
Well, we all need our breaks, so I'm glad that you at least got to do those in the interim.
I think I gained like 40 pounds over those years, kind of sitting at the table. So I've been working for like the last year. I've been walking like 5 miles a day, and like been trying to look. Nice. I don't know if you guys can see this terrible like saggy skin right here.
I think you're okay. Listen, you're at a low angle. I think
you're doing pretty good.
You're at a low
I
angle,
lost a
and
lot
I think
of weight,
you look
but
fine.
I got this weird saggy skin everywhere. It just won't go away.
You see it more easily than we do. I'll tell you.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. This is what I'm looking.
I can't even grow facial hair or anything to cover it up, so I'm just like, I got to have it out there for everybody.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that was all the questions that I had. I don't know, Libra, if you had any other ones you wanted to ask.
Yeah. What other stuff are you working on? I do genuinely want you to just plug whatever you want people to know.
Yeah.
I'm currently not actually working on anything because I have got like 4 or 5 pitches out at different places, So I'm basically just constantly working on pitches.
All right. What was the other story you mentioned, though? It was Time... you mentioned you were working on Time something?
Time Shifters, actually. Was like
okay.
That was before Animorphs. So
right.
Yeah.
But that's still to date like one of my thing I'm the most proud of. My dad actually died right before I got that book deal, and that was like, it was weird because I had this idea for this book about this kid who would go on these kind of time traveler, interdimensional adventures with like this crazy scientist guy and a dinosaur and a Abraham Lincoln robot and characters from like different multiverse stuff, but then it was like, that's scary because if they show up, what do they do? Just kidnap him? Even if he goes with them willingly, to some kids that could be kind of scary, right? Just you're taken away from your home forever.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, maybe they show up every night and take him, and they have him back by morning. And that was just as weird, like none of this was working and then my dad died, and suddenly it was just like, all right, so now I didn't have a hook for this story. I didn't really know what was going to happen, but then it kind of became, what would you do if you had one more moment with the person that you'd lost? If you could say one more thing to somebody, and while it doesn't feel like that way, that the way the book is, the ending has got a lot of that, and it's all kind of for my dad. And so that it's very heavy for me, but it's also the craziest. I mean, they go to a spider Old West. It's like the Old West, but it's all spiders, multiverse stuff. And I tried to put it. It's about as funny of a book as I could write at the time. Like it's ridiculous, but at the end, it's got a pretty good gut punch too, which I like. I like surprising people with.
Fuck
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Time Shifters, go look for it. It is by our guest right here, because I keep saying over and over again, because again, like this podcast is a lot about like fans of like transformation and all the themes surrounding it and all the context, all like that whole thing. And it always bothers me when people show kind of disinterest or incuriousness about somebody that they revere, and I love what you did, for this thing. I will also not really even take a glance at it. So do it. Look at Time Shifters, because as you can see, there's definitely heart put into it, and as he just said, there's a personal meaning behind that. Art is about connection, and I've been discovering that on a much more personal level lately. I even had like a decent exchange at TCAF with this guy named Dan Goldman, who's making his own comic, and I bought it, and it's called not Red Letter. I keep doing it because of fucking Red Letter Media. Red Light Properties, and it's just talk to him a good bit at the table, and then he mentioned at the end of all that, email me if you ever just want to say something. I did. And it's just that this is what it is. Connect with artists by seeing what it is they have to say. And, maybe you'll find TF in it anyway. Fucking just read other shit, I swear. You'll find it more. You'll like the stories. You'll be enriched. Please look at Time Shifters. I'm going to look at Time Shifters, Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could just chat with you for a while, but let me see. I guess one more thing. Okay, so last thing I'll ask is the at the back of the book, it mentions how you collect action figures, but only of the bad guys. Okay, so I see a couple of Vaders. But what other bad guys do you love to get? Okay.
That is quite the impressive spread. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's all like the vintage. Not all of it's vintage. Some of it's repro, but
yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
A lot of it's Star Wars, but like when it comes to like Masters of the Universe or G.I. Joe or a lot of that stuff, it was always the villains for me that I loved.
Yeah.
Right. So generally is like Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe. Those are where you go and you seek out the baddies.
Yeah. Well, there's another one too. I can't. What the hell is it? Doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah, they were always way more colorful, and they had the cooler weapons and the cooler guns the vehicles and all that stuff, right? Yeah, they lost every time. Whatever. They looked so much cooler, and they were, I don't know. To me, they were endlessly more interesting to look at.
Yeah,
gotcha.
And play with. So, but yeah, I mean, that's generally just the villains. Yeah.
Okay, so
Nice.
So do you have a favorite villain then?
Oh, Skeletor.
Skeletor? Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
Skeletor, nice.
He has got misplaced confidence coming out the ears. I love it.
Love that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no, he's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Chris, for coming on and chatting with us. I mean, really appreciate it. And if people are looking to find more of your stuff online, where can they find it?
Well, mostly I'm just on social media. I do have a website. It's chrisgrine.com. I don't update it very often just because I just don't have time. But I do occasionally. Mostly I'm on Blue Sky, Grinetastic. I don't really promote the other ones as much anymore, like all the meta stuff and all that, just because it's whatever. I'm still on Instagram, but I don't really post there anymore. Mostly it's just Blue Sky for now.
Cool.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Blue Sky's the place to be. So.
It's the place to be.
Yeah.
Not as disgusting and
Well,
gross as the other ones, right?
Yes, thankfully. Well, again, thank you so much. And
guys.
thank you to everyone.
Thanks for having
who
me.
got to listen to the episode. Yeah, no, it was great. And I hope that folks have a great weekend. Stick around for whatever comes next week. But thank you so much again. And we will see you all on next week's episode.
Yeah. Read Berserk, god damn it. It's been months. Go read it. Now! Grow the fuck up and read it.
Oh, jeez.